What's up, everybody? Hopefully you've had a wonderful week here in January. It's nice and cold here in Chicago, but just because it's cold doesn't mean that we can't talk about the Chicago Bears as the head coaching search marches on. One of the names off the list, Mike Vrabel, who, if you guys have tuned in before, thank you so much for coming back. If it's your first time, welcome. Mike Vrabel was my number one pick. I think a lot of people thought that it was a fait accompli that he was heading over to New England, a place that obviously he won Super Bowls with, a place where he knew the owner very well, a place that obviously would maybe give him a little bit more leeway in terms of the coaches or general manager that he wanted to work with. And Mike Vrabel is now a New England Patriot. So the Chicago Bears move on, and boy, have they moved on in spades. I am recording this on a Tuesday. If you're listening to this on a Saturday, I hope this number is still correct because God help us if this number gets any bigger. The Chicago Bears currently are at 19 head coaching candidates. That's right, folks. They're bringing in 19 different people to talk to about the head coaching job. And a lot of people have been asking me all week of how to make sense of this. So I'm going to try and talk out of both sides of my mouth because, to be honest with you, I think this process is absolutely ridiculous. It seems like it's a little try hard for an organization that continuously gets it wrong. They want to be out there and tell you that they're the organization that's going to cover every single base. And look, I wanted to cast a wide net. I wanted to turn over every stone. But you can't go to the beach and turn over every single stone. You're going to be there for forever, and you might miss out on the candidate that you want. 19 people. So here's my first thought on this. There's a part of me that says, if you've ever played fantasy sports before, and think of it like this, doesn't matter where you draft in that first round of your fantasy sports draft. You could pick 1st, 8th, 10th, 12th, doesn't matter. When it's your turn to make your selection, be honest with yourself. How many players are you legitimately considering to select with that first-round pick in a fantasy football draft? I've asked several people this question. Most people will say anywhere between 2 to 5 or 6. Makes sense. They're not considering 19 different people for one choice. If you have 2 quarterbacks, you have 0 quarterbacks. It's a bit of that theory. 19. It's truly just a breathtaking number. And there's a lot to consider why it is that they're doing this. So I went back into history, and I took a look at some of the old introductory press conferences that George McCaskey run, press conferences that he's had over the 14 years since he's been chairman of the board for the Chicago Bears. And by the way, during that span, 0 playoff wins. When he fired Lovie Smith and Jerry Angelo and hired Phil Emery, in Phil Emery's introductory press conference, he confirmed that he talked to 5 people officially. One of them was a special teams person, but they actually only interviewed in the building 3 people, and there are 3 finalists for the job. It was Darrell Bevell, it was Bruce Arians, as we all remember, coming off of Coach of the Year, and then, of course, it was the 2-time CFL Cup champion, Mark Trestman. So we interviewed, in the end, 3 finalists, talked to 5 people, and in the end, they settled with Mark Trestman. The decision was wrong. He gets fired. Ryan Pace gets hired and is in his first introductory press conference announcing the first head coach of his regime. He says that he had 4 finalists for the position. One of them at the time being Dan Quinn, the one that he actually wanted to bring over from Atlanta and hire as the head coach. Ownership said no, and they ended up with John Fox. John Fox doesn't work out. He gets fired. Ryan Pace then finally gets his shot at hiring the guy that he wants. In the introductory press conference introducing this new head coach, Ryan Pace confirms that he interviewed 6 people for that job. So the number's slightly going up, but still in the ballpark of this 4 to 6 range. He hires Matt Nagy. Matt Nagy takes us to the playoffs twice, 0 playoff wins, We all had our problems with him. Mitch doesn't work out. We fire him. We move on. Ryan Pace also gets fired. In comes Ryan Poles. During this time, in the introductory press conference introducing Ryan Poles and then the next head coach, George McCaskey says in the introductory press conference that he interviewed 13 different GMs and 10 different head coaches for the job. And after interviewing those 10, they landed on Matt Eberflus. Now, a lot of people will say after Ryan Poles was hired, he had his choice of 3 or 4 guys, but in the end, it was 10 at the time. And now they're at 19 head coaches. And I'm just trying to, for the life of me, sort of wrap my head around why it would be 19. The only reason why I think it could be that high, and hopefully this is something that Bears fans want to hear, is I do think that from the beginning of this process, from the moment the season ended or from the moment interim head coach Thomas Brown took over for Matt Eberflus, I feel like that offensive coordinator, the Detroit Lions, Ben Johnson, has been leveraging this entire situation. If you go back to the moment Matt Eberflus was fired, leaks from different agents or different agencies started putting out through different reporters and different reports that Ben Johnson would be interested in listening to the Bears job, provided the Chicago Bears detailed a path and a reasoning as to what's gone wrong in the past and how they can fix the mistakes and move forward to a brighter future. So throughout this whole process, they interview Mike Vrabel, but they don't have him in the building. They don't fly to him. They don't have him in person. And part of this feels a little bit like this whole thing is being leveraged by it's Ben Johnson or bust. And imagine being at an airport 3 hours before your flight takes off. And the flight's name is Ben Johnson. And you got 3 hours to kill. So what are you going to do? You're just going to start texting some buddies. You're going to start hitting some people up. If they got the downtime, they might as well give the appearance that they're doing some busy work. Now, are they going overboard on some of that busy work? I think they are a little bit. They're interviewing Andy Stenovich now, the offensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers, who's a former offensive lineman. Hey, guess what? He doesn't call plays in Green Bay. So they could also be doing a bit of a canvassing for new coordinators, future relationships, trying to build their connections throughout the league, maybe trying to get some intel from some other organizations. I understand all of that. But they also need to be very careful here that sometimes this overload of information, this overload of candidates can maybe obscure the fundamental and clear needs that this organization has to have with their next head coach. Quarterback, stability. They're going to use the phrase, so I might as well use it too as well. They're looking for that leader of men that Matt Eberflus supposedly was, but obviously wasn't. And it's an interesting process that sometimes that if you talk to too many people, you're going to start to pick apart a little bit. Well, this person had this aspect that I liked, but he lacked a little bit of this one. This other person had this. You're counterbalancing. You're trying to figure it out. Paralysis by analysis. And 19 head coaches. One of the new ones that is going to be, that will have his interview wrapped up by the time you're listening to this show, Sports Talk Chicago with Joey Christopoulos, right here on WLS AM 890. Happy Saturday. Is Mike McCarthy. Now, Mike McCarthy is very polarizing. I did a little bit of him on last week's show. I'm going to hit him a little bit again here. And the reason why he's polarizing is a couple of different reasons. One, he obviously has a track record that we're all familiar with. So there's very little to get excited about. If anything, there's more of a speculation of, can this guy, 20 years into his career, finally take it up a notch to a ceiling that he once had? He does have a Super Bowl underneath his belt. That happened many, many years ago. But again, he hasn't had the playoff success, especially with his time in Dallas, that I think would excite Chicago Bears fans now. But to be very fair, if we want to talk about getting this right, And if we want to talk about the Chicago Bears organization, an organization that I think you and I will both agree has made mistake after mistake over the last 14 years, and you want to say to themselves, man, we got to make a pick here that just doesn't mess this up, you could do way worse than Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy, 174 wins, 122 losses, 608 winning percentage. Pretty good. With Green Bay, he was 125-77. He had 8 10-win seasons. He went 10-8 in playoff games. I'm sure the Green Bay Packers will tell you that there probably should have been some more of those playoff wins on that board given the type of regular seasons and type of teams that they had. But still, 10 playoff wins. Count them up, Bears fans. It would take us 300 years to get there at this point, the way our organization has been run. With Dallas, he's been solid, 49-35. He's had 3 10-win seasons, all of them 12-win seasons. This last year, obviously, Dak Prescott got hurt. They lost Micah Parsons. CeeDee Lamb missed some time. Their stars didn't play. They were unable to come up with some wins. And still somehow finished 17th in offense. Still somehow, without all those pieces and all that stuff just mentioned, with Cooper Rush, a Mike McCarthy offense finished higher than the Chicago Bears. In 12 of his 18 seasons as a head coach, his offenses have finished top 10 in points. In 14 of his 18 seasons, his offense have finished top 10 in passing yards. So ask yourself, what's the most important here? If you feel like we have to get Caleb Williams right, we got to get Caleb Williams going. We got to get Caleb Williams within a structure where he can continue to grow and develop, become the quarterback that we all hope and want him to be. Even if you don't like Caleb Williams, I'm sure you wouldn't mind if Caleb Williams got better at football and became a player that helped us win games. We can all high five. We can all cheer. We can all have a good time. Mike McCarthy is going to give that to you. Now, are we going to complain about game management and some of those calls? Absolutely. That's been a problem with Mike McCarthy since the very beginning. There's been moments too as well in playoff games where they've kind of shrunk offensively and played conservatively. They've lost on some field goals in some situations, didn't score the points that they needed to after having explosive regular seasons. Hey, as a Bears fan, let's find out. I know a lot of people are complaining about Mike McCarthy about it would be stale, it would be boring. Give us the thing that we don't know. Give us the thing that would maybe give me some optimism, as in the Ben Johnson of the world. But what would you rather have? Be honest with yourself, Bears fan. Would you rather have a team right now over the next 5 or 6 years that makes the playoffs every single year, maybe gets bounced a couple of times, or would you rather have a Ben Johnson where maybe you do catch the lightning in that bottle, maybe you do become the juggernaut, or maybe like so many other people, Matt Nagy, Pat Shurmur, Mike Martz. There's been offensive coordinators that are geniuses, that are so elite at that particular aspect of the game. When they become head coaches, it just simply doesn't work. And with any head coach with the Chicago Bears, it is going to come with a healthy spoonful of skepticism, as it should, as it totally deserves. No one deserves the benefit of the doubt here. Even if they went out and they traded for Mike Tomlin, which I don't think will happen, you will have to ask yourself, can Mike Tomlin overcome some of the problems and the dysfunction that the Chicago Bears have had organizationally? It's very fair. But again, I keep coming back around to a couple things about Ben Johnson that no one's paying attention to. Everyone wants touchdowns and they want stats and they want scoring. I totally understand that. I just want the Chicago Bears to win. And two things keep nagging at me with the Ben Johnson situation. The first one is he had opportunities last year to become a head coach and had meetings lined up and then canceled them at the last minute. In one situation, he was supposed to get on a plane. They sent a plane for him, all that good stuff. He canceled at the last minute. Okay, that's fine. You change your mind. You want the right situation. You're thinking about yourself. You're thinking about your family, thinking about your career. I get it. And now heading into this year, a lot of that same residue, a lot of that same stuff continues to creep up. Things about how, well, the Bears have to convince Ben Johnson. The Bears have to, as they should, bend the knee about what they've done wrong and fork over all this power to Ben Johnson. We're doing a lot of romancing and wooing here, which I understand the Bears have put themselves in the position to be in, but at some point I do also have to ask myself, is there going to come a point, and did there come a point in the first virtual round of interviews where Ben Johnson actually has to sell himself to the Chicago Bears about what is he going to do with Caleb Williams? Who is his defensive coordinator? How is he going to run his football program? What is the path towards success? And you hear these small little rumors that he's a bit of an introvert. I mean, he's thoughtful, but is he necessarily a guy that should be in front of a room talking to 53 dudes to try and get them ready, to try and get them to snap a 2-game losing streak, to try and get them to clinch a few weeks earlier than they could maybe in week 18 because it's to the benefit of the team? There's all these little moments and roller coasters throughout a season that you have to ask yourself, can a head coach handle all those moments? At the very least, we all know Mike McCarthy breaks through that prerequisite because he's done it for 18 years. And let's be honest, he's done it incredibly successfully. And he's walked into good situations. So one would like to think if Mike McCarthy is interested in the job, if he got the job in Chicago, that it would be in alignment with what he would want. And he would be able to immediately put his philosophies into practice with Caleb Williams and the team at large. The other aspect with Mike McCarthy that could be appealing is, as everybody knows, or if you don't know, the Chicago Bears quarterback, Caleb Williams, his favorite player growing up on the field, so I'll make that delineation, is Aaron Rodgers. He patterned his game off of Aaron Rodgers. So if you want to pair him with the coach that was calling the plays with Aaron Rodgers when he was having those Hall of Fame years in Green Bay, I can make sense of that. I know I'm spending a lot of time on Mike McCarthy. I think the thing is that you have to start wrapping your head around is I think this dude is a major candidate for the next job. A couple other names that maybe would surprise you that I also think are candidates for the next job. Let's get it out of the way. He's coming up. He's got a national championship game in a couple days. I don't think Marcus Freeman's for real. I think what it would be, if anything, is the Chicago Bears would like to have a conversation with him or build a relationship with him that if and when Marcus Freeman ever wanted to jump to the NFL, the hope is that the Chicago Bears would be in front of the line because they were one of the first ones years ago that tried to seek him out to talk to him about what it'd be like if he came over to the NFL. Marcus Freeman seems like a wildly impressive coach, impressive leader. But I'll be honest with you, it's not a Sean McVay situation. I think it's a little bit of an apples to oranges situation for me. Notre Dame has a great defense. We'll see if they can hang with Ohio State. Personally, I don't think that they can this coming Monday for the national championship game. And I would have major questions about how Marcus Freeman would fill out his NFL staff, like who is his offensive coordinator, his defensive coordinator. I got news for you if you don't watch a lot of college football. Notre Dame's offense wasn't exactly the type of offense that I think would fit Caleb Williams. They did not have a great running back. In fact, they did not have a great quarterback. In fact, he ended up having to rush for 800, 900 yards and only 2,000 passing yards. He was as much of an RPO running quarterback as anybody else. If you want Justin Fields, Marcus Freeman's offense is for you. So I wouldn't freak out about it, Bears fans. If anything, I think it could be a good thing. Have the conversation, request, talk to him, interview him, get to know him a little bit, because I do think if he continues to have the success over the next 2 or 3 years, I think he will have the opportunity to make more NFL connections. And if he ever were to jump to the NFL and he did become the hot new NFL coach, and maybe he is the guy that's going to come and become an incredible Hall of Fame coach in the NFL for years to come, Chicago Bears can maybe be at the front of the line because they were first. I have no problem with that. Some other names out there like Joe Brady, offensive coordinator, Josh Allen, Todd Monken, offensive coordinator, Baltimore Ravens. I put them a little bit in the same category. Todd Monken, obviously a little bit older at 58. Joe Brady's in his 30s. My only thing with these offensive coordinators is we have to be really, really careful here. If you think that you're bringing those guys over only because of how incredible they are at offense, at some point you do have to stop yourself and say, how much a part of Joe Brady's success is Josh Allen being amazing, who, by the way, was amazing before Joe Brady got there, can win MVPs on his own without Joe Brady. So it's great that they have a great working relationship. It's awesome that when you put your foot on the gas and you're driving a Lamborghini, it goes from 0 to 70 right away. It doesn't do that in a Toyota. And the same with Todd Monken. Everyone's singing his praises right now. Well, it's pretty nice and easy when you have a player like Lamar Jackson, multiple MVP, when you have a player like Derrick Henry, built like any other running back in the NFL. Lamar Jackson was doing it before Todd Monken got there. I mean, is he calling the right plays and pushing the right buttons with a great player to create a great offense? Yes, absolutely. But to say like Todd Monken deserves really a ton of credit for taking over Baltimore the last couple of years, Lamar Jackson was a great player before that. So I just have a hard time kind of piecing that together. And the other thing with those two coordinators is they weren't there through the maturation process of either of those quarterbacks. They kind of got there when they were already fully developed. Bit of the Shane Waldron problem, right? You want to have someone come in that has experience in the developmental stage. And I hate to say it, Mike McCarthy checks that box a little bit too as well. The other one that terrifies me that I would say everyone get ready, get prepared for it is Brian Flores. Look, in the last cycle, I'm just trying to be honest and promise you that I liked Brian Flores and definitely thought he deserved heavy consideration during the Matt Eberflus cycle. It clearly, obviously, didn't happen. He has a nasty lawsuit right now going on throughout the NFL. I do not know how that affects his NFL head coaching status with the owners and all that good stuff. I do know, just keep an eye on it. Ryan Poles and him were teammates at Boston College. Defensive-minded head coach, a guy that's done a lot of PR repair over the last couple of years, especially after the quarterback in Miami, Tua Tagovailoa, said a lot of pretty nasty things about how he felt he was treated by Brian Flores. Has that changed? Has that gotten better? Look, Brian Flores is known to be a very intense guy, and his defenses are known to blitz. They seem to work for a while. It looked like the NFL caught up to him a little bit in the second half of this season. I do think he'll deserve heavy consideration. But in my personal opinion, Brian Flores is that middle ground between like a Mike McCarthy and a Ben Johnson, where Brian Flores has done it before, has had a little bit of success, so you have that experience, but also has not really won at a consistent high level in Miami. I mean, they did things where they started the season 1-7, and then they won 8 games in a row. I mean, it was a little schizophrenic. I don't want to put that on the coach, but it's just part of the factual history of his background as head coach. And then when you talk about him, Ben Johnson, there's a little bit of that unknown there is how does it fit, how does it work, and how can he put it together and make it actually happen? So it's going to be interesting to see. If you want my guess right now, I still think Ben Johnson is leader in the clubhouse. I'll tell you, the guy that I wanted, Mike Vrabel, is gone. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, this is the next guy. I want X coach. I want Y coach. And any coach that they hire is not going to get the benefit of the doubt from me, sports fans. He's going to come with a healthy dose of skepticism, a big bunch of prove it. And in my opinion, I think the safe pick is Mike McCarthy. I think the sexy pick is Ben Johnson. Neither of them is guaranteed. I think I would probably be as equally optimistic for both. Brian Flores would come with a certain amount of concern, especially who would be his offensive coordinator. And then Joe Brady and Todd Monken, I don't know. You can kind of miss me on that stuff. I don't really know what to tell you in that regard. I will tell you something about the Bears on the field type stuff. Clearly, everybody knows on the planet, doesn't matter where you go, gas station, White Hen Pantry, Jules, whatever, that the Chicago Bears need help with the offensive and the defensive line positions, especially coming through the draft. I will also tell you, though, if you do and you have any inclination to watch this national championship game on Monday, I think the Chicago Bears also need help at running back in this draft. I'm not saying you take an Ashton Genty, who was a Heisman finalist in the first round. Not saying that at all. But I am saying the value between the second, third, and fourth round. There is a lot of interesting running back talent in that particular area of the draft. I think you're going to have to roll out DeAndre Swift for one more year. I think Roschon Johnson is fine as an RB3 for right now, but I do not think he is a tandem 1-2 punch that is going to work for the Chicago Bears. So, having said that, Ohio State's running back, Travion Henderson. I like Quinshon Judkins a lot, but Travion Henderson, to me, I'm just calling it now. If you want to take this to your bar buddies. Throw it in conversation. But Travion Henderson feels like a guy who's going to be drafted in the second, third, or fourth round of drafts next year. And whoever gets him is getting an absolute steal. And I could see him becoming a star in the NFL quicker than you might believe. I just think he's got it. He puts his nose in when pass blocking. He's good in the screen game, can catch the ball just a little bit. I just love his cuts, and I love it when he gets in open space. His speed is unlike I've ever seen. Not the fastest dude in the world, but I just think once he gets in the open, he can break away. He's a home run hitter. He reminds me a little bit of Matt Forte, to be honest with you. So Bears fans, keep an eye out for Travion Henderson, an Ohio State running back. I think the Chicago Bears are going to need to target that. I'm going to be doing some more NFL draft talk in the coming months. But I just wanted to throw that out there, get my marker on it, where I think the Chicago Bears need help at that position. I think he's a player that can get it done, and he will be in a spot in the draft where the Chicago Bears could target, could get him, and hopefully turn him into the 1-2 punch with DeAndre Swift in the backfield that I think can really take the Bears offense to another level. If you want Ben Johnson in here, you're going to want two running backs in the backfield. I think Travion Henderson is the type of player that the Chicago Bears should target and keep an eye on, Bears fans, moving forward.